Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize for the cat in the background, by the way. Cat's being punished right now in kennel, so it's not too happy. But we're going to press on anyways, okay? All right, so we're going to cover the IEP today, okay? Parent guardian involvement, student involvement in the entire process. Talk about referral, evaluation, eligibility, components of the IEP, and the expectations of the ongoing communication, not only between teacher, but also, us at the school, the special educator, the parents, how that whole process intertwines. And we'll talk about the ethical responsibilities the teacher has as an educator to the uphold the IEP. Yeah. So first, let's talk about the referral process. The referral process is honestly just a teacher observation. Yeah, and typically these are caught very early on at the elementary level. Sometimes even before that. But also, it can be caught by you. If you go to a doctor's appointment, for example, and your doctor's like, listen, I'm noticing some things that are kind of in line with this disability that I know. You could have the doctor test the child, and the child then could be found eligible by doctor recommendation for a referral to an IEP. So once the referral is received, what happens after that, right? Well, first you have to get permission. So it can't just be a teacher sees a student struggling with reading, not reading on grade level, or just the comprehension is not there. A teacher can't just make that executive decision to say, okay, well, your child's not going to be in special ed. You have to get permission for that. Nothing can move forward unless you give explicit permission. And that's typically by signing a document that will allow the school to conduct tests on the child. And these tests are the next part, which is evaluation. A child has to be evaluated by an diagnostician. Sorry, I'm the tongue twister there for me. And that person's sole job is to find the areas that the child is struggling in and conduct focused tests on those areas, right? So if the teacher reports that the student is having difficulty in math, just it can't get math. Well, the educational diagnostician's job is to test that kid or student on math. So we can focus in on where it is that they're studying or they're having difficulties in, right? So that's part of the evaluation process, but also to determine what kind of disability they have. So there are different categories of disabilities, and each of these is underneath a different subcategory, or each you have your primary categories and then you have your subcategories. So you may have a child that has an intellectual disability, or an emotional disability, or another health impairment, or a speech language disability. I mean, the entire this long list. It is a long list, but that person's job, like I said, is to find what that disability is. Now, once that is done, you have once that is done, you have the initial making of the IEP, right? So after evaluation's done, whether the child is eligible or not eligible. If it's not eligible, the child is not eligible, well, then the process ends there. But if the child is found eligible, then an IEP has to be drafted. And an IEP stands for an individualized educational program. Okay? But it is, like it says, individualized for each student, right? No IEP is the same. Every IEP is different for every single student because some things work for one student, they won't work for another. It's our job as special educators to find what works for that student and make sure that they're getting that what works, light bulb moment in all their classes, right? That's our job as special educators. But, moving forward from drafting the IEP, you'll have the present levels of performance, which covers all of the present levels of academics, the functional performance. How does that child act at home? Are they able to take care of themselves? Is there, you notice some social things that are going on? That's listed there in the functional performance. And then you have the student area needs, which goes over what will really help that student succeed in a classroom setting. And then you have the other part, which is, forgive me, I'm having a brain fart, the effects of the disability on the child. So that part covers the actual disability itself and what does it do for the child, right? Why does the child struggle? Because, or what is the cause of the struggle? We know it's the disability, but what does that disability actually do, right? So, like I said, not every kid is the same. You may see that one child and another child have another health impairment, but it's not going to be the same. It's not. It's going to affect them differently than the other student, right? Okay. And then you have the information about the student, what grade they're in, how are they, personal observations of the student, little boy Jim. He's a great student, gets along well with his peers. He's a bit bubbly at times there, and he's in the sixth grade. That's what you would put there at that very top part. So, present level of performance, that's the first part of the IEP. The second part of the IEP would be the accommodations, right? This is everything that is going to help your child in the classroom. And these are specifically modifications done to help them. So, if they are able to focus better when they have a highlighter and they're able to highlight certain informations, we'll put that as an accommodation to make sure they have that, not only in just the class they're struggling, but in all their classes. Yeah. If they have struggle reading or comprehending the reading when they're doing it, they may qualify for a read aloud accommodation where someone will read the material to the child so that the child is able to focus on comprehending the information rather than just reading the information. So, there's various different kinds of accommodations. Really, the sky is the limit when it comes to accommodations. So obviously I say the sky's the limit, but obviously there's, cutoffs in regards to that, but I digress. So, accommodations covered, right? Well, now we have annual goals, and that's really kind of self-explanatory. We're going to set some goals for your child. That child will have goals that are directly oriented for the classes they're going to be in. So if your child is in a history class, we're going to set some history goals for them. We want them to achieve that objective by the end of that class, right? So if they're at the high school level, we want them to be able to understand the difference between the Neolithic and Paleolithic eras. What is the difference? We want them to be able to accurately, with 80% accuracy, say, Neolithic is for the New Stone Age and Paleolithic is the Old Stone Age. We want them to be able to do that by the end of the class, yeah? So that's what we're going to be doing there for the annual goals. The services go alongside with the annual goals. So if they're in a history class or a math class, we want them to be receiving collaborative, which is a special ed teacher and a general ed teacher in the same class. So that way the special ed teacher can help the special ed education kids, and the general ed educator can help or can focus on just teaching the class as a whole. That special educator in the class is supposed to be able to take that information and relay it to the special education children in case they're not able to fully comprehend what it is the general educator is saying, right? And so we list the services there, and that the collaborative setting is going to be listed in there, where you will have collaborative science, collaborative math, collaborative history, or it may just be a consultation. We may just monitor the kid, while they're in class to make sure they're passing their classes. These are all part of the services tab. We're telling you as the parent what it is we're going to be doing with your child in terms of the special education services and when they're going to receive them, for how long, and how frequently. That's all listed there in that services portion. So after services, you have the present level performance, which, excuse me for a second, not present levels performance, sorry, the prior written notice, which is going over why we're implementing the IEP, your rights as your will offer you the procedural safeguards at that time, and it will also cover various information that will be helpful to you. Like, if you want more information, who do you contact? We put that there in the prior written notice for you. But also, the prior written notice, we can't implement the IEP until you sign off on that prior written notice and say, everything looks okay to me. You go right ahead and implement that. So, okay. All right. So, that loosely covers the components of an IEP. I can talk here for 30, 40 plus minutes about IEPs and the components of them, but we don't have that kind of time. I'm already over the time limit, which was like 5 minutes. So way over it. We're going to press on, okay? All right, so expectations of ongoing communication between teachers, school, parents, and guardians to support the development and achievement of the student. This is such an important part of the IEP process. And it's the part that we really honestly we overlook. I don't know about everybody else out there in YouTube land. Hi, YouTube, by the way. But I feel like this is overlooked, Teachers, school personnel, parents, when something is different, that needs to be relayed back to us, the special educators, because we can then see what we can do on our end, try to make things a little bit easier. Special education teachers are a resource that you, the parents, have to help support your child even more. And so it is critically important that teachers are relaying, hey, look, I just want to say little Timmy was struggling really bad on this portion of text. I don't know if it was maybe it was too big, maybe it was too many big words, but I just figured you should know that he was really struggling on this, and this is kind of an important thing for his upcoming test that he has to take. Okay, as a special educator, that tells me, okay, maybe I need to pull him or have the collaborative teacher pull him to focus on that portion that the teacher noticed he was struggling on, right? Get him that little extra one-on-one time so that little Jimmy or Timmy, can't remember who I said, but anyways, either one of them, so that way they can succeed on the test when they take it, right? So that's why one of those critical things is important. Did you go to the doctor and the doctor said, oh, by the way, such and such no longer has this. We tested for it. It's not there anymore. That's kind of information that we need to know too, right? Because that helps keep the IEP accurate. And an accurate IEP is a good IEP. Remember that. All right. The ethical responsibilities the teacher has to uphold the integrity of the profession as part of the IEP process. Part of what makes an IEP is the accommodations that it gives. That is probably the most important part of the IEP for the general ed teachers. The general ed teachers get that information from the IEP that we give them when they have a special ed student in their class and they're on our caseload. We present them with a copy, a modified copy, mind you, of the IEP, right? So we may include the cover page, which has the parent contact information, which is the important part for the teacher. We will include the accommodation pages, of course, because the teacher needs to know what accommodations the student has so that she can make sure or he can make sure that those are in place. And then, of course, lastly, we may include the present level's performance. We may include the annual goals. This is all information that we may include in a package for a teacher so that they are better better equipped, I should say, not armed, better equipped to help the child succeed in their classroom. It's really a guideline, really, to help them and how this child will succeed in their classroom and how they should modify their lesson to better meet the needs of the diverse and unique population in their classrooms. So that's it. That's it right there in a nutshell. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining me on this wondrous and 15-minute long video. This is now officially 10 minutes over the max time that I was allowed. So I'm going to end it here. I want to thank you, everybody who watched. And if you have any questions, drop a comment. You know, I'm here to answer. I'm here to help. So thank you all, and have a wonderful night, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, night, morning.